Well, looky here, a new listener. Hey, this ain't your little sister's radio station.
From all of us at CPR Worldwide Media to all of you, Merry Christmas. Hey, who put eggnog in my eggnog?
Christmas, we wish you a Merry Christmas, we wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Good tidings we bring to you here again. Good tidings for Christmas and a Happy New Year. We all know that Santa's coming, we all know that Santa's coming, we all know that Santa's coming, and soon he'll be here. Tidings we bring to you and again. Good tidings for Christmas and a Happy New Year. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
All of us at CPR Worldwide Media would like to wish all of you a very Merry Christmas.
Every Friday morning, they send me out to get the goods. But what they don't know is that I'm using my city thank you card at the coffee shop, so I get 2 times the points. And those points add up fast. So sure, make me the grunt, because I'll be using those points to help me get to a beach in Miami. And all the big shots will be stuck here at the Cube Farm.
The City Thank You Preferred Card. Now earn 2 times the points on dining out and entertainment with no annual fee. To apply, go to city.com/thankyoucards.
It's not about how many miles you can get out of the C-Max Hybrid. It's about how much life you can fit into it. The Ford C-Max Hybrid, with an EPA estimated range of 540 miles on a tank of gas, and all the room you need to enjoy the trip. Go stretch out. Go further.
Come on, Harry!
Dumb and Dumber 2 is the #1 movie in America.
Am I right? What?
Seriously, it's #1.
These guys are morons! I like her a lot.
Dumb and Dumber 2, rated PG-13, now playing.
However dark the night, however dim our hopes, the light is always there within you.
His family gave him hope.
You fight harder than those other guys, and you win.
His spirit gave him strength.
We're gonna die out here.
We're not dying!
And in his darkest hour,
Who is the Olympic athlete?
his faith would not be broken.
Hello, Mother and Father. This will be the first time in 2 years that you'll have heard my voice. I wish you all a Merry Christmas. Your loving son, Louis.
On Christmas Day, experience the unbelievable true story of one man's journey home.
You can take it. You can make it. Just gotta believe you can.
If I can take it, I can make it.
Unbroken, rated PG-13, Christmas Day.
Read something recently worth thinking about. It's the soldier, not the campus organizer, who's given us freedom to demonstrate. It's the soldier, not the reporter, who's given us freedom of the press. It's the soldier, not the poet, who's given us freedom of speech. It's the soldier who serves under the flag, who defends the protesters' right to burn the flag. Isn't it time now to demonstrate that we support our troops? Were it not for the brave, there'd be no land of the free.
Fred Thompson's message was brought to you by citizensunited.org.
Welcome to the State Legislators Roundtable. Your host will be Charles Kacprowicz, Executive Director of Citizen Initiatives and Countermand Amendment. Our special legislator guests will be discussing important issues in their states that relate to federal encroachment on states' rights. The nonpartisan Article 5 single-issue countermand amendment can remedy many states' issues peacefully without the consent of Congress, the courts, or the executive branch. We will reclaim our constitutional republic soon. The nonpartisan countermand amendment is the missing piece of the Article 5 puzzle. Our nation is coming apart at the seams. So, we are countermanding.
One of George Washington's early official acts was the first Thanksgiving Proclamation, which reads, "Whereas it is the duty of all nations to acknowledge the providence of Almighty God, to obey His will, and be grateful for all His benefits, and implore humbly His protection and favor." That's how our nation got started, folks. Welcome to the State Legislators Roundtable. My name is Charles Kacprowicz. I am the Executive Director for Citizen Initiatives and the Countermand Amendment. Roundtable discussions with state legislators and community leaders center around critical issues in the states as they relate to federal encroachment on states' rights and how the nonpartisan Countermand Amendment can remedy many of them safely and quickly. This is not a gotcha forum. We are not here to back our guests into a corner. We encourage serious discussions of issues important to our guests and their states. Subjects can include taxation, criminal law, energy, healthcare, social issues, federal land grabs, court decisions, education, executive orders, unfunded liabilities, EPA, BLM, IRS, and many, many more. You will learn how to protect your enumerated rights in the Constitution and how the states and their citizens can identify, define, and protect their unenumerated rights in the 9th and 10th Amendments peacefully and permanently. Roundtable members tonight are Sandy Toth, our Executive Coordinator, Mike Coons, our National Director, and Kelly Gordon, our National Coordinator and Producer. We now have 15 sponsored states for the nonpartisan Article 5 Countermand Amendment. We could have a total of 20 sponsored states for the next 30 days. We have had the honor of meeting many of the country's leading legislators on the State Legislators Roundtable. I see these state legislators more as statesmen than politicians. They are earnestly trying to find solutions to their many problems for their citizens, that their citizens face, especially as they relate to encroachment by the federal government. You can go to countermands.us, that's with a plural, countermands.us, to learn more about the Countermand Amendment. You can also ask your friends to tune into our program tonight. Ask them to go to CPRWorldwideMedia.com/live-radio. That's CPRWorldwideMedia.com/live-radio. And finally, you can participate in our online chat. Go to Facebook, groups/ that is facebook.com/groups/CPR Worldwide Media. And we have our National Director monitoring that chat as we speak. Call-ins can be made at 956-217-0031 if you have comments or questions for our guests or for our members on the roundtable. Kelly, why don't you introduce our guests tonight, and then we'll move forward with this show.
I would love to. Thank you, Charles. Tonight's Citizen Initiatives welcomes Craig Andresen and Diane Sori of RIGHT SIDE PATRIOTS from right here on CPR Worldwide Media. Craig Andresen is from the National Patriot, and Diane Sori from Patriot Factor. They've joined forces and now co-host RIGHT SIDE PATRIOTS. And it is a hard-hitting TEApublican Conservative internet radio show. It's carried right here. And these guys are very politically incorrect. They take on today's political landscape, both here in America and abroad. And they are a show you guys do not want to miss. They are awesome. So join us tonight and discover what Americans everywhere are discovering, and that is that we can reclaim our constitutional republic safely, quickly, and peacefully with the nonpartisan Countermand Amendment under Article 5, using the state legislators, bypassing Congress, the courts, and the executive branch. Thanks, Charles.
Thank you, Kelly. Now, Craig Andresen, welcome to the show. Diane Sori, welcome to the show. And we look forward to having a good conversation with the two of you on subjects important to you. What's on your mind, Craig?
Well, I'll tell you what, it's been so much stuff in the news lately, Charles, and that's what Diane and I do. But Diane she was talking to me earlier today, and she says, I got somebody on here that just doesn't get it. The difference between what should be at a federal government level and what should be at a state level. And, both of us, and I know you guys too, but both of us literally pull our hair out almost on a daily basis because people just don't understand that there are certain things that belong at the state level.
Yes, and I'll add to Craig's state level issues by saying the social issues are issues that most assuredly belong at the state level, not at the federal level.
There is a statement that I will read to you. By the way, I'm in a public restaurant, and so for those in the audience who are wondering where the noise is coming from, it's because the background noise is from other people and music. At any rate, James Madison made the following statement. I read this before on the program, but it ties in with what both Craig and Diane are talking about here this evening. The powers delegated by the proposed Constitution to the federal government are few and defined. Those which are to remain in the state governments are numerous and indefinite. The former, that is, the federal powers, will be exercised principally on external objects as war, peace, negotiation, and foreign commerce. The powers reserved to the several states will extend to all the objects which in the ordinary course of affairs concern the lives, liberties, and properties of the people and the internal order, improvement, and prosperity of the state. So here you have, Diane, exactly what you were saying, and that is that the states have been assigned, as defined by James Madison, numerous rights and prerogatives, and the federal government has been assigned with our Constitution a very limited role in specific areas for the purpose of benefiting the states. So that is a very important concept, and you're right, there are a great many people who no longer understand what it is that we have in our federal system under this Constitution.
Yes, and the problem is also that we have a president now and an administration in place that is trying to take over everything, actually having the federal government as the overseer of the states, instead of realizing most important powers come at the state level.
That's correct. I'm going to share a little bit here in a bit about a very important meeting. And as a matter of fact, the reason I'm calling from the road is I couldn't get to my home in time for this show. There was an accident. And so I had I wasn't in the accident, but it cost me a good hour. But I'm in an actual restaurant right now and broadcasting from the restaurant. But the fact is that I'm returning from a 4-day trip to Louisiana, and the issue that you are presenting, dealing with states' rights and what is, in fact, to be a states' right, was exactly what we were presenting and discussing with the Louisiana Balance of Power Commission, and in which it was a bipartisan commission with both houses of their legislature, and it was a marvelous experience. But at any rate, it ties in exactly with what you're saying, trying to define federalism, trying to define what it means to have states' rights, trying to define the limited power of the federal government, a constant battle, and an education process that we just have to continue doing it on and on and on.
Yes.
One of the things, Charles, that Diane and I deal with all the time is trying to explain to people, and we bring you guys up, we bring your show up, this show on our show all the time, because we need people to understand that there are solutions to this. And Diane talks about the just this overbearing, overwhelming power that the federal government has over the years, just kind of usurped from the states. But there is a way to get through all of this and solve these issues. And what we're trying to do on our show is get people to listen to your show, because you guys have the answer to this in the Countermand Amendment. And we just find it fascinating that so many people have no idea what Article 5 is all about.
Well, I thank you very much, Craig. That's important, and it means a lot to me. I thank you very much for your kind comments. Article 5 has been maligned for the last 30 plus years. It's been maligned by people on the far right mostly, John Birch's, the Constitution Party people, some libertarians, and then on the left there are some liberals and progressives that have maligned it. Why? Because they think that Article 5 is an open door to a constitutional convention. That's the flaw. And so with that understanding and that flawed assumption, what these groups have done, they have literally paralyzed state legislators from understanding exactly what Article 5 is and why it's for state legislatures, not the federal government, and how it is restricted in its application just based on its wording, proposing amendments. So the Balanced Budget Amendment is an example of the problem. It's been out there right now for over 30 years, maybe longer. There were at least 32 states that had made an application on Congress for a balanced budget amendment, and 18 rescinded. But they rescinded because the John Birches went into the states and scared them half to death. And they said, look, you can't have an Article 5 convention safely. You're going to open up the convention to a re-examination of the entire document and the Constitution. And as a result, these legislators, not knowing what Article 5 is, rescinded their applications for a balanced budget amendment. That's been going on for decades, Craig, and it's one of the things that we are responsible for doing or explaining to legislators, and we've been doing that, including recently down in Louisiana.
Well, tell us a little bit about your time in Louisiana, because I think your listeners would like to know how things went down there. And Louisiana, I mean, you're dealing with a state legislature down there that's, I don't know how receptive they are to Article 5 and things, but that is a state that has really gone red. And so, I mean, what was it like? I mean, how did you get along with the legislators that you met with?
Craig, it was a fantastic experience. They received me extremely well. I was an honored guest. There were two of us. Michael Farris was the other honored guest from, he's the director for Convention in the States. And he was going to present his side for the first hour as to why the Convention of States is the way to use Article 5. And then I was asked to present the Countermand Amendment and how the amendment through the Article 5 Convention can produce a safe, quick, and successful convention and amendment to the Constitution. So we had a very, very gratifying experience. There were in the panel, I would say 4, 8, 10, at least 10 legislators from both houses of their legislature, and they were attentive. Elbert Hillary was one of them. He is that black senator who used to be a Democrat. In 2013, he became a Republican. Well, he has become extremely popular in the world, across the country right now, and he is. He was on that panel, on that commission, and we had a wonderful time with him. But there were many others, and I would say that as a result of the presentation, there were probably 2, maybe 3 more that joined our team in support of the Countermand Amendment. So I think in a short while, Louisiana will be making an application on Congress for Congress to convene the Countermand Amendment Convention. and also for the resolution we believe will pass too, for the delegate resolution to bind the delegates going to the convention. But I would say that Louisiana is a different state from what it was, say, 20 years ago. The legislature is very, very open to Article 5.
Do you get any sense from that, Charles, that the entire South is going to be receptive to this, or?
I don't know if the entire South will be, Craig, but I will tell you this, that the South is likely to be more receptive than the North. And the reason being is because, you have the issues of the Civil War. They still have some sore feelings about how they lost it. They see secession as a factor in having failed on their side. And as a result of that, there is a sentiment to become independent from the federal government. And now the problem that I see and we have to address is basically the same that I just explained a moment ago. The Convention of State People are down there. They're presenting it, the Article 5 arguments in one way. Georgia, for an example, has made an application on Congress for the COS Convention. Florida has made an application for COS, but it's because they understood it the way COS is explained it to them, not the way that we are with the Countermand Amendment. So the South is probably going to go for all, I suspect that the South will go for the Countermand Amendment, but all of the states. But at this point, I don't know how quickly that will happen because of these other issues that come into play, including the John Birches and now the COS people.
Charles, I think it's important that you go into a little bit of detail about exactly what Article 5 of our Constitution is, because most people don't understand that it describes the process that's needed to alter the Constitution.
Well, I believe that you're right. I believe that it is important for us to explain some things dealing with Article 5 and how it was intended to be used. And I think I will preface my answer with this comment, and that is that the state legislatures in 1787 created the federal government. The federal government did not create the state legislature. Now, the reason that that's important is because today we act like the federal government's in charge. But in the early part of our nation's history, the individual colonies were nation states. And then they formed a confederation with the Articles of Confederation. And they decided that they would try to find ways in which to cooperate with one another. But sovereignty, which they failed to do, by the way, because the Articles didn't provide the forum for them, because it required unanimous consent, and so one state could actually hold the other 12 hostage. And there were 13 colonies at that point. But the fact is that the central issue was always sovereignty. So, and that's what we don't talk about today. The Convention of States People, for an example, not that I pick on them, they are an ally, but they are an ally. The fact is, they have this idea that using Article 5 depends on convention experience, it depends on constitutional history and legal precedent. And when you analyze it that way, you're in a mess that is a political mess that will never be unraveled. You're always going to deal with who means this, who means that. So the approach that the founders had in giving us Article 5 was that the sovereignty that the states had that first required unanimous consent, they altered so that it was now in the new Constitution under Article 5 where it can be, the Constitution can be amended with just 3/4 of the states voting for it. Now they broke the deadlock. Now they created a forum that would allow a process that would give the states the ability to make decisions, especially with relationship to amendments, without gridlocking the whole nation. That was a critical factor. But in further answer to that comment, there was a serious problem even at the convention, the Constitutional Convention, as to what sovereignty meant. And there was an argument. The larger states wanted the votes at the Constitutional Convention to be based on population. The smaller states wanted it based on a single vote for one state. And there was a fellow by the name of John Wythe who came in. He was a delegate and also an intellect and a professor of law and so forth. He was really a respected statesman. At any rate, he came into the picture and he said, look, let's get a committee together and decide how we're going to vote, even before we start the convention. And with that committee, he finally got the delegates to realize it has to be one vote per state. That is the same problem that we have with Article 5 conventions. It still has to be decided. There is nothing in the Article 5 itself that says that it's going to be one vote per state. So that's why the Delegate Resolution is so critical. It defines that. And when the state agrees to it, they're binding their delegates to that contract that they have in the Delegate Resolution, along with the pre-approved text for the amendment. So Article 5 is a very important part of our history because the sovereignty that they had back in 1787 was passed down to the legislatures today so that the legislatures could define how to use that sovereignty without all this political mishmash. And as a result, be able to make decisions that would allow the states to address egregious wrongs suffered by the people that the federal government won't remedy. And so given all of that, Article 5 is extremely important, Diane, in every aspect of our life today to protect federalism, to protect the states' rights that are very much in the middle of our problems. And by the way, federalism today is different from back then.
So you're basically talking 38 states need to go along, and right now you're at close to 20, you said?
We have 15 that are where we have sponsors and who are introducing the Countermand Amendment Convention to their legislatures this session. We expect that maybe all of them will actually approve it. Once that's done, then we still need 34. 34 is the minimum that's needed in order to force Congress to convene the Countermand Amendment Convention. Once the Countermand Amendment Convention is convened and the delegates at the convention approve the amendment that we have, then it goes back to the states through Congress for ratification. Then you need 38 states.
Correct. Okay, that's what I thought. I knew 38 was in there as an important number.
That's exactly right.
Well, now, I just got to ask what I think is a really, really important question. Given the fact that you are doing the show tonight from a restaurant, what is the special of the night?
Leave it to Craig.
Well, look, I haven't had dinner yet, so I'm hearing this going on in the background, and I'm thinking maybe the meatloaf.
Well, I'm afraid it's a McDonald's, to be honest, so it's nothing you want to brag about.
Well, I get a Happy Meal.
Say that.
I'll get a Happy Meal and some fries and a Diet Coke.
Well, I eat at McDonald's all the time, so it's not a question of belittling. That's not what I'm doing. But the fact is that it is McDonald's. What happened was I was coming back. I was hoping to get to my house by showtime about an hour before, and there was an accident, and it locked us up for an hour. And I had no choice either to call in or to try to get on at the McDonald's. I managed just a few minutes before to get on. So that's why we're over here with the noise in the background. Anyway,
I think it's great because look, this is part of live radio, folks. And when you're doing live radio and you're on the road, sometimes you got to improvise, and that's what Charles has done tonight. But I'm telling you, I'm still wanting a Happy Meal and fries now.
Okay, and I'll join with you, but you're going to have a trip to get out here. Listen, we're going to have to bring a break in here, and Kelly will make an announcement. But what I want to hear from you guys is what you're doing on your show, how some of the things you're focusing on. And we can still talk about Article 5, we can still talk about Louisiana, but I do want to hear some things to let people know about the show you have, because there's a kind of investigative journalism that you have that I think is important for people to hear.
Also,
Kelly?
Charles, let people know about your formula, the 34, 26, 38, 51 formula that helps describe your strategy for making the countermand happen. But we're going to take a quick station break right now, and we'll be right back with some more great conversation with Craig Andresen and Diane Sori of Right Side Patriots. Stay tuned.
This is a station identification moment. You're listening to CPR Worldwide Media, a division of CPR Media Network, coming to you live right across the planet.
I believe that every single one of us has what it takes
to win back-to-back gold.
Ski faster than any other human.
I believe it's possible to overcome fear.
I believe
it's possible to destroy stereotypes.
To start over, to be the toughest,
the strongest,
the bravest in the world. And when we work together, we can make it all possible. That's why Citi has donated $500,000 through its Every Step of the Way program, an initiative created to help future athletes reach their full potential through sport programs that inspire us. Like figure skating in Harlem.
Like youth enrichment services. Like Team for Tomorrow.
The Team USA Stay on the Slopes initiative. Now spread the word and help decide how much of that money goes toward
offering personal support and financial assistance to Olympians in need.
Promoting the growth of hockey in the U.S.
Expanding the sport of luge into new regions.
Support for wounded service members. Join Team Citi and let's turn a world of potential into reality.
Go to citi.com/everystep and help decide where the money goes.
The design of the Ford Escape is clearly intended to grab your eye. Oh, and your foot. Huh, ain't that a kick? The Ford Escape with the foot-activated liftgate. Go open up something interesting. Go further.
Come on, Harry!
Dumb and Dumber 2 is the #1 movie in America.
Am I right? What?
Seriously, it's #1.
These guys are morons! I like her a lot.
Dumb and Dumber 2, rated PG-13, now playing.
However dark the night, however dim our hopes, the light is always there within you.
His family gave him hope.
You fight harder than those other guys, and you win.
His spirit gave him strength.
We're gonna die out here.
We're not dying!
And in his darkest hour,
Who is the Olympic athlete?
his faith would not be broken.
Hello, Mother and Father. This will be the first time in 2 years that you'll have heard my voice. I wish you all a Merry Christmas. Your loving son, Louis.
On Christmas Day, experience the unbelievable true story of one man's journey home.
You can take it. You can make it. Just gotta believe you can.
If I can take it, I can make it.
Unbroken, rated PG-13, Christmas Day.
Read something recently worth thinking about. It's the soldier, not the campus organizer, who's given us freedom to demonstrate. It's the soldier, not the reporter, who's given us freedom of the press. It's the soldier, not the poet, who's given us freedom of speech. It's the soldier who serves under the flag, who defends the protesters' right to burn the flag. Isn't it time now to demonstrate that we support our troops? Were it not for the brave, there'd be no land of the free.
Fred Thompson's message was brought to you by citizensunited.org.
Welcome back, folks. This is Charles Kacprowicz. I am the Executive Director for Citizen Initiatives and the Countermand Amendment. Boy, that Thompson message is something that moves me. I love what he says in that little spot that you just heard on the radio just a few moments ago. All right, we have two wonderful guests with us today, Diane Sori and also Craig Andresen, both of whom are co-hosts on Right Side Patriots, right on this station that we're on right now, CPR Worldwide Media.com. And you can add to that live/live-radio. Now, you can go to countermands.us to learn more about the Countermand Amendment and also how Article 5 can be used and how it is that we are moving the amendment across the country. And you'll learn a lot of information as to what we have in our Constitution, why the state legislatures are receiving this Countermand Amendment so well. And just go there, countermands.us. If you have comments or questions that you want to direct to us independent of this chat here tonight, please do so. And we have a comment section that you can go to and leave us a message. Okay, now, Diane, I would like to hear from you, and I'd like our audience to hear from you. How is it that you have become investigative journalists and the kind of investigating you do for the purpose of bringing information to your audience?
Well, Craig and I both do almost every day, I can't say every day, but almost every day, at least 5 of the 7 days a week, we do articles, both independently and together. When we do them together, they're actually investigative reports. We're the ones that basically nailed Benghazi before the main talking heads nailed it. We also did the land grabs, and we've gotten a lot of very not nice flack from the alphabets wanting to know how we get our information. That's not their business, nor do we have to tell them.
Yes, I agree.
So basically, Craig and I are investigative reporters for CPR, and we got together and did our talk show. And in the process, we also have some guests of name, and one of them that we're always very happy to have is Mudar Zahran. And he is the leader of the Palestinian People's Movement, which is pro-Israel. They want a secular government in Jordan. They understand that Jordan is actually Palestine. And through Mudar, and he announced it on our show, the King of Jordan is not happy with Craig and I because we nailed the truth behind the King of Jordan.
What a wonderful guest to have.
Well, let me fill you in a little bit on what happened there. This is probably about a month ago. We had Mudar as a guest on the show on Right Side Patriots, and we went in deeply into the situation with the king and what needs to be done and how to bring peace and stabilization to that part of the world. And we found out after the show that the king was listening from the palace. He was listening to the show, and he was not at all happy. As a matter of fact, he was just a little pissed.
Yes.
And because I mean, we flat out told the truth about what's going on over there and about him and his allegiances and things like that. So we had Mudar on again last Wednesday, and if folks missed that show on Wednesday, we'll rebroadcast it tomorrow right here on CPR at 1 o'clock Eastern time, 1 in the afternoon, right after our live show. But when we were talking to Mudar on Wednesday, we brought that up about the king, and he said, "Oh yes," and he said, "I guarantee you, the king is listening today too." And they're trying to downplay Right Side Patriots as CPR, but yet we can look and see that we have a lot of listeners in Jordan. So it's a little interesting, when we can sit over here in our respective states. Diane's in Florida, I'm in Nebraska, and we can have that kind of an impact on the other side of the world that lets you know that CPR Worldwide Media is the real deal, and we do have people listening. So
yes,
isn't that incredible?
The Obama administration was not too happy with our Benghazi and land grabs exposés.
That makes two kings that we've made mad now.
Yes.
The one in Jordan and the one in Washington.
In fact, our yours and our CEO and station owner was contacted by the administration's people. They are not happy with Craig and I because we told the truth. We only tell the truth, and we hold nothing back. But we do it in such a way they can't counter anything we say because everything we have is backed up by facts. And what this administration is curious about is how do Craig and I get this information? And like I said, it's none of their business.
Well, and the moment that you reveal that information to them, they'll find a way to destroy your source. So you've got to be very careful. But I appreciate the fact you have that wisdom. Now listen.
But we do need to say, and Craig and I prefaced this, and our CEO has prefaced this, we do not have a mole in the White House. You hear that, alphabets? We do not have a mole in the White House.
Yeah. Well, I can't imagine that they would have anybody even close to our side in the White House. But at any rate, that's good. Now, so the King of Jordan is the one who found himself offended by your program that night. Is that the idea?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And apparently he's not been happy with us ever since. That was a month ago, and we gave him some more ammunition on Wednesday. So I'm sure he's got the tablecloth on his head on a little too tight. But that's just the way it is. It's time for the king to go. It's time for Jordan to drop their ties with the Muslim Brotherhood and Hamas and the Palestinian Authority. The king over there now is almost inconsequential. I mean, the power in Jordan is vested now with the military. The military is basically telling him what to do. And the leader and get this, folks, the leader of the Jordanian military is actually Barack Hussein Obama. He's the one that's pulling their strings.
Yes.
It's a very it's a very convoluted thing.
And don't think that Netanyahu doesn't know that. Don't let Netanyahu's sort of calm attitude towards the king right now fool you. He knows exactly what's going on, and he can only be pushed so far before he strikes back. And if he has to, he will strike back against the king.
Yes. Now, is Hezbollah still, have they taken control of the military there?
Well, no. The Muslim Brotherhood basically is the strong arm force there. The military of Jordan is no longer basically taking orders from the king of Jordan. They're taking their orders from the United States vis-a-vis Barack Hussein Obama, because he's the one that's supporting them financially now. So,
I see. Wow. Well, I do know that I do try to keep up with what's going on in Israel. I've had communications with the Prime Minister Netanyahu on a number of occasions, and three occasions. And at any rate, I try to support them in every way I can, including any posts that I have. So I'm sympathetic to what you're doing, and I commend you for it. And I trust that you'll have a big part in helping that relationship with the nation. You realize that there might be just 7 or 8 billion.
I'm sorry, you're excuse me, you're popping in and out, so I think you're done here.
Okay.
But we have some things in the works with Mudar right now, and we are going to try to get him a congressional audience. Congress needs to know the truth about the king, needs to know the truth about what's going on there, because they're being bamboozled as well.
Yes, I believe you're right, Diane. I watched the history of things going on in the Middle East, and the way our administration has treated Israel, it is disgraceful. The fact is that little nation is 7 or 8 million people, and they are surrounded by 150 million Arabs who hate them, and who are trying to push them into the sea. And here, God says they're the apple of his eye, and as a result, he says that he who touches the apple, he will, I'm not quoting right now, but he will be touching the apple of my eye, and God will judge him for that. But the point is, a lot of people do not understand how important Israel is and why. It's one thing to see them as an ally, and I'm going to add a little bit of history here, just for about 30 seconds. In my understanding of biblical prophecy dealing with Israel, what God is doing with that little nation from Abraham until the present is completing his plan of redemption for all mankind, because the Messiah, they know him as the Lord Jesus, I do, but the fact is he's going to sit on that throne of David, and from there he is going to rule the nations. Well, that is an incredible plan that is being opposed by everyone that literally hates God, including Satan himself. So what I'm going to suggest is that little nation, if it falls, we all fall. because God will not have completed his plan the way he had intended it. Now, that won't happen, but that's how important this little nation is. So what you're doing is to be commended, and they need the encouragement that they get from people like you.
And we also do it from a tangible here and now, just logistical end. Israel is America's staunchest ally, not only in the Middle East, but probably in the entire world, maybe second only to Great Britain. And here it is, an ally of this country who has always stood by America is being destroyed by Obama because he stabs Israel in the back every time he can. Obama forgets that Israel has what I call 350 little friends. It will just take going 1 ounce too far. Remember, Netanyahu has always said he will not surrender Israel. He will not give in to 8-mile borders. He will not do this, this, and this. And he's right. And if push comes to shove, he will go in and take out Iran. And he will do everything that he needs to do to keep Israel functioning as a state intact. And that means if push comes to shove, all those little nations that surround him, big nations, but I'm calling them little because they're really backwoods cesspools, but none of them, when you think about it, really have a functioning nuclear weapon, except Pakistan. And Israel just needs one provocation, one direct threat that they are going to be annihilated, and Israel will strike back like you have not seen.
I believe that your analysis would be accurate. The preemptive abilities are very, very telling because they've done that before, and that's the only way they can preserve themselves, and that is to find the vulnerable spot, preemptively react so that the enemy doesn't even know what happened to them. And I agree with you. They will do that. Now, what disturbs me, though, is that even with Iran, because of Obama, I mean, I'm just 6 years later, and we're still talking about giving them more time. But the fact is that Netanyahu was sitting there trying to figure out what to do with this enemy that has already declared that they're going to wipe them off the planet. I mean, Netanyahu has to be sitting back. How are we going to be threatened with? I mean, their little land is probably no bigger than the state of New Jersey. And
that's about the size.
I am just, yes. And why they want this little piece of land? I can't imagine that.
It has to do with the Levant, the covenant, the Levant, like Obama keeps calling ISIS, ISIL. That's the Levant. And according to that, from Turkey all the way down to North Africa is an Islamic caliphate. And in that caliphate, there is no mention of the state of Israel. And that's what they want. They want the Levant minus Israel.
I did understand that the way you explained it, Diane, but I must tell you, every time I hear his spokesman, I'm talking about Obama's spokesman, saying ISIL, I get shivers. I just sit back, I say, what is this idiot, what is he talking about? He's talking about a nation.
Well, let me tell you, Charles, what they're doing there is they're literally sending a message to ISIS that the White House and the White House press briefings, the propaganda, if you will, is on behalf of ISIS. So every time they say the word ISIL instead of ISIS, they're sending a message to ISIS that all is well, and the Obama regime is covering for ISIS. That's really what it is.
I believe that you're right. I believe that is the hidden message. Now, I'll tell you a little story about how I came to know something about Obama in 2002. You're going to say, now, how did that happen? He didn't come into office until 6 years ago. Well, I wrote a book, and the book is called Reclaiming America. Reclaiming America, America Identified in Prophecy. Now, the book had with America's role in prophecy, but I was invited to speak on a radio talk show up in Chicago. This was in 2002. And I assumed that they wanted to talk about the book, but they didn't. I got on the show, they gave me an hour, but I hardly said anything. because they wanted to broadcast their black liberation theology to me. And the first caller came in and he said, what color are the Jews? And I said, what do you mean, what color are the Jews? And he said, well, do you not know that the Jews are black? I said, no, I didn't know that. I said, there may be many Jews that are, but they're from an ancestry that is Caucasian. Well, no, they're all black. And then he said, well, what color is Jesus? And I said, he's Caucasian. You know, I assume that, not that it matters, but the fact is, he said, no, Jesus is black. And he said, there was another question that he asked me, dealing with, where are the real Jews today? That's what it was. And I said, well, they're in Israel and they're scattered around the world. And they said, no, the real Jews are in Northern Africa. And they're waiting to come in from Northern Africa and to evict the false Hebrews, the people who are falsely claiming to be Jews in Israel right now. Now, and I got to thinking about that, and I said, where does this guy get all this, where do they get all this information from? And here's what happened. Obama had been part of Dr. Jeremiah Wright's church for 20 years.
Yes.
It's a church that's called Black Liberation Theology. And they have a twisted understanding of Western history. They hate the Jew. They hate Christians. They hate white people. And the fact is, they are advocating this kind of nonsense. And now we have that very theology, that very ideology in the White House. Now, you can be a black liberation theologian and at the same time be a Muslim, for an example. And so you've got this element that is also part of Obama's history. It is absolutely alarming to me that we have allowed this man to get into the White House.
We didn't allow it. The elections were all determined before the first vote was cast. The media helped with that. They stacked the deck, against any candidate that we would have put up. Romney, McCain, it didn't matter who.
Yes.
We lost because they were dead set on having America's first black president, not understanding that Obama is not black. He's mixed race. He's mulatto. He's biracial. Okay, he is not America's first black president.
No, that was Bill Clinton.
That was Bill Clinton, right? Hopefully, maybe.
Can I interject something here on Israel?
Sure.
Yeah, the thing, I think Netanyahu's probably going nuts right now when you consider the fact that we now just traded 3 spy/criminals to Cuba for one guy, and I'm glad to see him back. I get that, but then at the same time, nobody's talking about the Christian pastor that's sitting there and rotting in an Iranian jail cell.
That's right.
So then you have the Cuba thing that just happened. Now we got Sony and Korea, and Obama's now coming out today and saying, Sony made a mistake, and then Sony's going, we tried talking to you, and they couldn't get to him. And then you got Iran, so he is he's got to be thinking, very worried. I'm sure he's been worried all along ever since Obama's been in presidency. But I bet you he is really worried right now who's got his back. Well, and it sure the heck isn't the United States, not from the presidential level.
Yeah, I'll tell you something, Mike. Bibi Netanyahu thinks miles ahead of most people. Believe me, he saw this all coming. And, he knows that Obama will be of no assistance to him whatsoever. And this is why you see when, a few months ago when the war was going on between Israel and the Palestinians in Gaza, Obama was sending Kerry over there to try to negotiate something. And Netanyahu simply ignored him. Just literally ignored John Kerry, and for good reason. Kerry's kind of a blithering idiot. Yeah. So he knows, Bibi knows that He's on his own with this one. He'll have the help of Great Britain, probably Australia, but nobody with the power, the military might of the United States. He knows that if he's gonna have to count on that, he's gonna have to wait until after 2016 to get it. But you bring up a lot of great points though, Mike, because all of this stuff is going on, and there are direct ties right back to the White House in a lot of what you just mentioned. Diane and I are going to get into a lot of that tomorrow on our show at Right Side Patriots between 11 and 1 o'clock. So,
yeah, and the other thing that I was kind of thinking about too was, and I'm having a senior moment right now.
We are running out of time, so let me run into something. I want to ask you, Craig, did not Netanyahu just shake up his government by dismissing one of the liberal members, a woman,
yes,
and then called no elections?
Yeah, and that's because he knows he's got to maintain a very strong control over the Knesset. He's got to be able to make decisions on the spur of the moment. And he cannot have people there that are going to kind of hem and haw around and delay. When push comes to shove, like Diane said, Netanyahu is going to be a man of action, and he cannot wait for the Knesset to try and weigh every possible outcome on some of these things. There simply isn't time. There simply isn't the latitude for that type of thought. It's going to take somebody with a clear mind and strong action, and that is Netanyahu.
He actually is the world's last great statesman. He really is the world's last great statesman. You really can't think of anyone else.
Great statesman, you said?
Yes, the world's last of the great statesmen. I mean, think about it. Think about the heads of all the governments now. None of them come to the caliber of Bibi Netanyahu.
Yeah, I would agree with that, by the way. I have been one of his admirers for a long, long time. And he speaks with clarity, he speaks with conviction, he speaks out of strength, and he doesn't allow himself to fall into the trap by concluding that he has to be so political that he comes up on the short end. I admire him a lot.
Yes.
Very good.
I mean, we're going to be talking about.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say we're going to be talking about all of those things tomorrow on the show, and we, I know we only got about a minute or so left here with you tonight, and Diane and I have a lot to get done before we publish articles and things tomorrow. But we want to thank you for having us on the show, all of you. It's great. We always love when we get to do a show with some of our other fellow CPR radio talk show hosts. But I just want to mention that on Right Side Patriots, one of the two of us is celebrating a birthday today, and it's not me.
I'm going to kill you.
Oh, good one.
Well, happy birthday, Diane. Congratulations.
Well, Diane, you're just 29 and holding, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
But I don't like personal stuff about me going out. So Craig is dead meat after this show.
No. Come on now. This is really nice, I think, of Diane to take time out from the endless 24-hour party cycle that she's on to do this show tonight and to do our show tomorrow. So,
and I do want to do a little plug as far as our CPR family working together on Wednesday on Christmas Eve. We're going to have a very special show, basically dedicated to our men and women in uniform who have to serve or had served overseas during the Christmas, Hanukkah season. Okay. And we're all part of it. And I think it's something our listeners will find very, very, not only interesting, but also heart-touching.
Now, we have to quickly close now, but Diane, what time does your show broadcast during the week?
We are on Wednesdays from 2 to 4 EST and from Saturdays from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. EST. And the special Christmas show will follow Right Side Patriots this Wednesday at 4 p.m. EST.
Excellent. Now listen, folks, I want you to take hold of their show and listen. They have incredible information. You've heard just some of it tonight, and you'll be enlightened like you'll not get anywhere else. Now, folks, we have to go to break now. We have to listen to our CPR sponsors so that they can share with us their good news. And we would like to come back, asking you to hold with us, and we'll come back and enjoy the second hour with State Legislators Roundtable.
Check out our website at www.cprworldwidemedia.com and our Facebook page at facebook.com/CPR Worldwide Media.
Why do cities shine so bright? It's the glow of opportunities, of ideas bouncing off one another, of countless people, every one of us, striving to succeed. Right now, in cities everywhere, ideas are being born. New thinking that will put us in awe of what people are capable of. That's what lights cities up. And helping people and their ideas to burn even brighter, so that communities, businesses, and you and I can grow. What if a bank made that its job? For more than 200 years, Citi's job has been to help empower people and business. Now, around the world, it's wherever people gather, wherever ideas come alive. It's wherever you are. The world's city.
The design of the Ford Escape is clearly intended to grab your eye. Oh, and your foot. Huh, ain't that a kick? The Ford Escape with the foot-activated liftgate. Go open up something interesting. Go further.
Come on, Harry! Dumb and Dumber 2 is the #1 movie in America.
Am I right? What?
Seriously, it's #1.
These guys are morons! I like her a lot.
Dumb and Dumber 2, rated PG-13, now playing.
However dark the night, however dim our hopes, the light is always there within you.
His family gave him hope.
You fight harder than those other guys, and you win.
His spirit gave him strength.
We're gonna die out here.
We're not dying!
And in his darkest hour,
Who is the Olympic athlete?
his faith would not be broken.
Hello, Mother and Father. This will be the first time in 2 years that you'll have heard my voice. I wish you all a Merry Christmas. Your loving son, Louis.
On Christmas Day, experience the unbelievable true story of one man's journey home.
You can take it. You can make it. Just gotta believe you can.
If I can take it, I can make it.
Unbroken, rated PG-13, Christmas Day.
Read something recently worth thinking about. It's the soldier, not the campus organizer, who's given us freedom to demonstrate. It's the soldier, not the reporter, who's given us freedom of the press. It's the soldier, not the poet, who's given us freedom of speech. It's the soldier who serves under the flag, who defends the protesters' right to burn the flag. Isn't it time now to demonstrate that we support our troops? Were it not for the brave, there'd be no land of the free.
Fred Thompson's message was brought to you by citizensunited.org.
Charles?
Welcome back, folks. This is Charles Kacprowicz with the State Legislators Roundtable. I am the Executive Director for Citizen Initiatives and the Countermand Amendment. We just had a delightful, powerful, insightful experience with Craig Andresen and also Diane Sori from the Right Side Patriot program on CPR Worldwide Media.com. I would encourage you to go to their programs learn what it is that they're doing. The conversation that we just ended had to do with some very insightful, informative issues that they are addressing regarding Israel and the nation as it's being under threat in the Middle East. Now, we are going to start our second half right now, and we're going to be addressing memoranda. And we're going to be discussing the difference between memoranda and executive orders. Sandy Toth, our national executive coordinator, is going to be introduced first, and then we will have our national director, Mike Coons, commenting on very important developments in Alaska because of these memoranda. So, Sandy, you go ahead and take the helm and share with us what you have on your mind.
Okay, well, in listening to a lot of news this week, I was surprised that I saw a lot of anchors who were kind of incredulous that the president also, besides doing executive orders, did memoranda, and he could send out little orders anytime he wanted to be followed. And they were trying to understand the difference. So basically, the media are sitting there kind of dumbfounded and wanting to investigate. Well, the White House spokesperson, Josh Earnest, was asked about it, and he gave a very stupid answer that didn't make any sense. So I think the media will continue. But the upshot of it is that if you follow the news and you've heard about executive orders and how Obama's done less executive orders than George Bush or Bill Clinton, and they're bragging about that he really has not abused his power. Well, with the memorandum side of it, he has done more memoranda than any of the other presidents. So he's kind of going between, and when he wants to quietly get something through, I think he has tended to use the memoranda. For example, Mike's going to talk about one that was done in Alaska by the president.
Thank you. Before Mike gets on, I want to, because you and I talked about this briefly earlier today on the phone, I want to just read Section 2. And yes, I do agree that a memoranda is literally the same as an executive order. The only difference is it has a different name. The question is, can the Countermand Amendment address it? And the answer is yes. And here's the reason. State legislatures, this is Section 2 of the Countermand Amendment. State legislatures in the several states shall have the authority to countermand and rescind any congressional statute, judicial decision, executive order, treaty, government agency's regulatory ruling, or any other government or non-government mandate, including excessive spending and credit, imposed on them when, in the opinion of 60% of state legislatures, the law or ruling adversely affects their state's interest. Now, I'm going to stop there. The point that I'm trying to make is the section that applies here to this memoranda and executive orders is, or any other government or non-government mandate. That's why the Countermand Amendment can even countermand and rescind this memoranda. Now, Mike, why don't you go ahead and tell us what happened up there in Alaska?
Okay, thank you, Charles. This happened this past week. Unbeknownst to a lot of folks down there in the lower 48. This is from the Anchorage Dispatch News, or as we call it, the Anchorage Democratic News, or the Alaska Dispatch News, Alaska Democrat News. And it's titled, Obama Says No to Oil and Gas Leasing in Bristol Bay. And the thing that struck me at the very first was, and this is a quote from his videotape message that was posted Tuesday on YouTube. YouTube. This wasn't on Fox. This wasn't on MSNBC or CNN. This was on YouTube. Hey, everybody. said President Obama said in a videotape message posted Tuesday on YouTube. Earlier today, I took action to make sure that one of America's greatest natural resources and a massive economic engine, not only for Alaska but for America, Bristol Bay, is preserved for future generations. Some 40% of the nation's wild caught seafood comes from Bristol Bay, and its waters have supported Alaska Native people for centuries. It's something that's too precious for us to be just putting out to the highest bidder, Obama said. Hey, everybody. How unpresidential can you get? But I want to kind of go in. So he did this by executive order, executive memo. It really doesn't really say how he did it. Of course, the environmentalists are just completely tickled to death about this, and there's nothing in this article from conservatives or conservationists. And it goes on to further say the environmentalists say this decision effectively provides, quote, permanent protection to the Bristol Bay and waters north of the Aleutian Islands, though they acknowledge another president could reverse the course. What they don't understand is we had the Countermand Amendment to reverse that course.
Mike, let me ask a question. Is Bristol Bay under federal control?
There are portions of Bristol Bay, yes, like Eisenbeck, like we've talked about the Eisenbeck Road before, Eisenbeck Refuge, that is federal. There's you got your federal waters. There's a big dispute on federal waters that are continuously going on. But this is right smack dab right next to Pebble Mine, which is the largest gold and copper mine in the world.
All right. Well, the reason I asked is that's why he has a memoranda or executive order, because in that he has authority over land that's controlled by the federal government or the Bay.
Well, not necessarily, because that's still Alaskan waters, and it's always been Alaskan waters, and it's by statehood.
Yeah, I understand. What I'm suggesting is that because of the control of the federal government on Alaska land, he may feel justified in being able.
Well, and that may be true. The size of the scope of this thing is ridiculous. 32.5 million acres. That's the area that has been being impacted. It's called the North Aleutian Basin Planning Area, which includes Bristol Bay. Some history on this is in 1986, the federal government sold oil leases for that area. And then in 1995, those leases were bought back. And then President George W. Bush proposed a new lease sale again in 2011. And then that would have opened up 5.76 million acres on the edge of Bristol Bay for drilling. But then Obama withdrew those waters from leasing after the Deepwater Horizon disaster in 2010. Now the oil industry, and I've been to Bristol Bay, I've been to not Hooper Bay, I've been to Naknek, and I've worked out there as a paramedic. So I've seen that area, and I know the people, and we've discussed the whole issue of oil versus fisheries, because it is the largest amount of silver salmon and red salmon in the world. So it is a big concern for the Alaskan people. But the oil industry has not been pushing for leases. They never really have one way or the other. The leases have come out, a few have bought, but they really haven't done anything with it. Here's the disconcerting thing. This is I want to read two quotes. One from Lisa Murkowski, our senator for the state of Alaska, and our new governor, Bill Walker. Quote, given the lack of interest by industry and the public divide over allowing oil and gas exploration in this area, I am not objecting to this decision at this time. I think we all recognize that these are some of our state's richest fishing waters. Still, the questions why the announcement came ahead of the bomb, end quote. So that was her comment, which she got a phone call from me about. And then our new governor, who on this show matter of fact, one of our radio broadcasts here just a few months ago was so much that he was going to stand up to the federal government. He says, quote, "The pristine waters of Bristol Bay feed some of the world's most premier fisheries," Walker said in a written statement. He said he looked forward to working with the federal government to develop areas in the state and offshore for oil and gas. Bristol Bay, however, is not that place, Walker said. So here's the part that the Countermand Amendment is really going to have. We're going to have some really interesting times with. 2 previous presidents used the same section of the Outer Continental Shelf Lands Act of 1953 to protect offshore waters from drilling. Going back to President Eisenhower, he did this at Key Largo in Florida, and President Nixon used this executive power to withdraw waters around the Channel Islands near Santa Barbara in California. Those areas remain protected according to the Pew Charitable Trust. And then lastly, it from a environmentalist, I believe she's an environmentalist, Dorothy Childers, it takes Bristol Bay off the table, said Dorothy Childers, who is pushing for protection since the 1980s. She's Associate Director of Alaska Marine Conservation Council, which works for sustainable fishing and habitat protection. It's 750 members. Now, that's one of the reasons I wanted to quote this, include fishermen and residents of Alaska coastal communities. So what does this do? What this does is, again, takes out of the hands of the people of the state of Alaska our use of our natural resources. Our natural resources being the bounty of the sea, the land, the minerals, the oil, everything else. And what this really comes down to, too, is, and kind of going back to what Diane said, people don't understand the federal versus the state aspects, is that, yes, there is a contention about Bristol Bay. Yes, there is concerns about commercial fisheries, and can that be done safely with oil drilling? Can that be safely done with copper and gold mining? I get that. But the people of the state of Alaska are the ones, through our legislatures, through our Department of Natural Resources, through our Department of Environmental Conservation, that should be making this decision, not the wannabe dictator Barack Hussein Obama, not Lisa Murkowski, not Chucky Schumer, not Harry Reid, not Nancy Pelosi, but the Alaskan people, because this is our state, and it's our resources, and it's our land, and that's where this Countermand Amendment is really going to come. It's going to be so powerful, because we're going to be able to take this. We're going to be going back to 1953 with the Outer Continental Shelf Lands Act. We could get rid of that. We could get rid of the 1906 Antiquities Act, and we can get our land back, our waters back, and we can then do. If we want to make an area a park, state park, fine and dandy. That's the state's determination. If we want to open that up for drilling, that's our state's determination. If we want to open it up for mining, if we want to open it up for ATVing and snow machining and hunting and fishing, that's the state's decision to do, and it's not the federal government's. And that's where the difference between state and federal is, and this is where the Countermand Amendment is going to really knock the socks out of these guys.
Mike, that's wonderful, and I appreciate the insight, the information, and the clarification. The reason that I had asked that question is that the executive order or memoranda, which apparently, according to some legal people, is no different than an executive order, and I believe that. The fact is that it has no power on private land. It has no power on land that is not under the control of the government, the federal government. So that's the reason I asked it. And apparently, he's looking at not Prudhoe Bay. What is the name of your bay again? Bristol Bay. He's looking at that as kind of an estuary for environmental protection, and I think that's
And Charles, let me kind of expound on what you just said there, because it's an important aspect that a lot of people don't understand. And this is happening down in the lower 48 too, folks. Don't think for 1 second this isn't happening in Utah, that this is not happening in Nevada and Wyoming and Montana. But the state of Alaska is 67% of our land is federal land that was stolen out from underneath us through the 1906 Antiquities Act and Jimmy Carter. And then Bill Clinton added to it, and others have added to it. Then you take 30% of our land was given to the Alaska Native corporations under ANILCA. The amount of land that is privately owned in the state of Alaska is a whopping 1%. And remember, folks, we can put Alaska on the lower 48 map, and we go from East Coast to West Coast. We are the only state in the Union that is today and tomorrow, because our Aleutian Island goes across the international date line. 1% of the state of Alaska is private land. And what he is doing is he's even trying to lock up that 1%.
Understood. And that's part of the environmental ideology that's been going on.
Call Jerry back and tell her I'm in the middle.
That is incredible.
Charles,
mute your phone, Mike.
Charles,
yes.
If I could make another comment about this, because
please.
The news anchors were talking about this. With this idea of coming out, and for legal purposes, they're probably the same. But one of the things they found out is that instead of running an executive order for this immigration thing that he was doing with the illegals, he used 2 memoranda and skipped over to that.
Yes.
So what they're talking about now is how much else has he done that we do not know about by using this switch system between executive orders and a memorandum.
Yes, yes.
So the reporters are going into it, and one of the things they were bringing up was about Bristol Bay, but there's also memorandums that were used for gun control and other issues that we need to look at and see what our wonderful president has been doing to us.
Well, yeah, and Sandy, also, according to Fox News, just I think it was yesterday, they showed that he has done 200 quote-unquote executive orders, and I think they said he was either 259 or 359 memorandums.
Sneaky.
All right, folks, you can hear the seriousness of these discussions with the Right Side Patriot folks in the first hour now, dealing with issues dealing with Israel and investigative reporting, and Benghazi, and they're doing a wonderful job. And here we are talking about a recent memoranda, which is really a type of executive order, and how the president is taking control of more and more and more of the land of the states, and doing it because of the ideology he has, that is, through environmentalism, they need to protect state lands. Now, I want those of you in the audience who would like to call in, use 956-217-0031. That's 956-217-0031. Our producer will be glad to put you into the queue, and you will be able to make comments and ask questions as you wish. But I want you to focus on something that's very important. We heard some startling problems. Even problems dealing with Israel can be addressed with the Countermand Amendment. But you heard some startling problems that right now have no way in which to be reversed or solved. Memoranda that are beginning to take control of even more and more of states' rights as well as states' land. Guess what? The Countermand Amendment can address that. The Countermand Amendment, with only 30 states, could say to the federal government and to the president, you went too far. You went too far, and we are rescinding it. And when 30 states countermand that particular memoranda or law or ruling or even court decision, the fact remains it's a rescinded memoranda. he has no impact anymore. It has no impact anymore on the work that and what he's trying to do. He can't keep using that memoranda or that strategy over and over again. He's been stopped. The National Strategy Committee, which is what we have formed or are in the process of forming, is composed of legislators, citizens, with a steering committee. It is the job of the legislative body, as well as in cooperation with citizens on citizen initiatives, to identify these kinds of memoranda and, I should say memorandi, I guess, executive orders, EPA rulings, BLM rulings, even IRS rulings, congressional statutes, court decisions. The purpose is to identify them, prioritize them, and then select the ones that need to be immediately rescinded. This will be an ongoing process with the Countermand Amendment. It's a way that we can reclaim our government, we can reclaim our states' rights, and at the same time we still leave for the federal government the legitimate role that they have to perform a federal mandate of protecting us and providing the services that only the federal government can. One further thing I want to mention, that when the Countermand Amendment is in place, when it's been ratified, there is a chilling effect that will take place on the federal government. Whether they be in the agencies and they are career administrators, whether they're just employees, whether they're in the White House, whether in Congress, all of a sudden there will be the awareness that two things are going to happen with the countermand. One, they can be countermanded for what they're doing that the states disagree with. Two, if they are intentionally trying to obstruct the rights of the states, citizens, through the countermand, they will realize that there's a penalty of up to 5 years in prison. And third, they will also realize that if the federal government doesn't prosecute them, in this amendment, the state governments can. That means there is no escape for them. They either do it right and respect the states and write laws that are going to be for the purpose of making a right relationship with the federal government and the states, or they're going to be in trouble. So I want you to hear that, folks. This is very, very important. It is going to create a balance between the federal and state governments that will, in fact, make our governments work more efficiently and effectively. I would like to now ask Kelly if she has something to add to this.
Oh, you surprised me, Charles. I wasn't ready for that. I absolutely love the power of the Countermand Amendment. I think our state legislators are going to have a great time learning how to use this tool. And the steering committee jumping in there, all of us getting together, prioritizing what we can fix. The Countermand Amendment addresses so many issues. And I was worried about that memorandum and executive order thing, but as usual, Charles, you've got it covered. The Countermand Amendment is a brilliant piece of legislation, and we really need to get this powerful tool into the hands of our state legislators. So if anyone out there wants to help out, find out how you can get this information to your local representative, visit our website, countermands.us. Leave us a message. We'll get a hold of you, and we will be so happy to help you get that information to your legislator.
Yeah, and Kelly, also, we might want to say that too. When you go to that website, on the left-hand side, Charles has his latest book out, and you can purchase them and identify those going to your state legislators. You can get their state legislators that in their hot little hands, so that they can read it and fully understand it, because it goes about the Countermand Amendment and Article 5 in a well-defined methodology. And so that would be a great Christmas stuffer.
Absolutely.
Fireplace, or what am I thinking of? Stuffer for the
great addition to your library. Lots of information.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciated that plug. And we'll get back to the audience here in a little bit. we have to hear from our station sponsors and also some other announcements that our station would like to make. So stay with us. We'll be back in just a few seconds.
This is CPR Media Network, coming to you live from the USA.
My name is Christopher Perkins, Captain, United States Marine Corps. I spent 9 years in the Marines and led a team in Al Ramadi, Iraq that risked its lives daily. Today, I'm a managing director at Citi, where I oversee a global team that provides safeguards for the $700 trillion derivatives industry.
Veterans, many of them have the right skills to be great bankers. And when they come in, they know how to make decisions, they know how to take risks, they know how to multitask. All of those things make them really great colleagues.
Just like we would go out onto the streets of Iraq, we would do an analysis of what risk we're taking and thinking about ways to mitigate it. It's no different here.
That makes them extremely valuable, and that's why we want them here helping our clients.
This industry requires our clients' trust. It requires a high degree of integrity. And so just like the Marine Corps, your reputation is what it is, and your word is very important.
The design of the Ford Escape is clearly intended to grab your eye. Oh, and your foot. Huh, ain't that a kick? The Ford Escape with the foot-activated liftgate. Go open up something interesting. Go further.
Come on, Harry! Dumb and Dumber 2 is the #1 movie in America.
Am I right? What?
Seriously, it's #1.
These guys are morons! I like her a lot.
Dumb and Dumber 2, rated PG-13, now playing.
However dark the night, however dim our hopes, the light is always there within you.
His family gave him hope.
You fight harder than those other guys, and you win.
His spirit gave him strength.
We're gonna die out here.
We're not dying!
And in his darkest hour,
Who is the Olympic athlete?
his faith would not be broken.
Hello, Mother and Father. This will be the first time in 2 years that you'll have heard my voice. I wish you all a Merry Christmas. Your loving son, Louis.
On Christmas Day, experience the unbelievable true story of one man's journey home.
You can take it. You can make it. Just gotta believe you can.
If I can take it, I can make it.
Unbroken, rated PG-13, Christmas Day.
Read something recently worth thinking about. It's the soldier, not the campus organizer, who's given us freedom to demonstrate. It's the soldier, not the reporter, who's given us freedom of the press. It's the soldier, not the poet, who's given us freedom of speech. It's the soldier who serves under the flag, who defends the protesters' right to burn the flag. Isn't it time now to demonstrate that we support our troops? Were it not for the brave, there'd be no land of the free.
Fred Thompson's message was brought to you by citizensunited.org.
Welcome back, folks. This is Charles Kacprowicz, Executive Director for Citizen Initiatives and the Countermand Amendment. In our roundtable panel tonight, we have Kelly Gordon, our producer and national coordinator, Michael Coons out of Alaska, our national director, and Sandy Toth, our executive coordinator out of Georgia. So we've had a lively discussion. We've had insightful thoughts that have been shared. I've been learning a lot, and I think that we're especially encouraged by the fact that some of what we've been talking about can be addressed with our Countermand Amendment, and as a result, reverse some of the terribly difficult, not difficult, but problematic edicts that come from the federal government and prevent states from actually exercising their states' rights. Now, Obama recently had addressed an audience that, and he made this, and it was on the news broadcast, and he made this comment. He said, communism and colonization must be left in the past. Communism and colonization must be left in the past. Now, what he has done here is he has made communism equivalent to colonization. Is he making a good point? Mike?
Nope. No. I mean, I heard that on Rush Limbaugh the other day too, and yet he embraces Fidel Castro and his brother to the worst communist in the Western Hemisphere, but yet colonization is worse than communism.
That's what he is saying. One of the ideological teachings that the black liberationists have is that colonization is an evil force. They see the white European, especially England, as an agent for evil. And with that, they are always trying to find a way to diminish the good that comes out of Europe, especially as Christian heritage, but also how to demonize things that have some good aspects. So I'm going to ask our panel, what good aspects are, as far as communism is concerned, there is no good aspect. Godless, it hates God, it killed some million people in the 20th century, still killing people all around the world. But what about colonization? Is there any good in it?
I would say, if you go back to when we were colonized, when the Americas were colonized, there was a lot of mistakes made, yes, and we did some. The British did some bad things. Dutch weren't any much better. The Spanish were not. The Spanish were definitely worse when they colonized. And they called it colonization, but was it really colonization? It was more, let's see if we can get all the gold we can get from the Incas and the Aztecs. From that standpoint, there was a lot of problems with colonization. But I think it was Nat Geo the other day did a really interesting article, or did a really interesting piece on the colonization of North and South America, and how that had such an impact on Europe as far as getting people out of Europe, getting foodstuffs to Europe that they didn't have, they could never have had before. So on balance, yes, there was problems. Yes, there's positives. On balance, if the positives completely outweigh the negatives.
All right, thank you. I'm going to bring something to your attention with regard to Christopher Columbus. Now, do you recall the year that Christopher Columbus is said to have discovered the West Indies?
1492.
All right, so you're up on that. Now, I have been reading from a book called Great American Statesmen and Heroes by Catherine Millard, who I really respect this woman. See if I can. I didn't prepare for this, but I'm going to read a few things. He quotes Isaiah 66, verse 19. And I will set a sign among them, and will send survivors from them to the nations, Tarshish, Cush, Lud, Meshech, Rosh, Tubal, and Javan, to the distant coastlands, that have neither heard my fame nor seen my glory, and they will declare my glory among the nations. Now, Mr. Columbus, Christopher Columbus, was sent here to colonize the West Indies so the gospel of Jesus Christ would be propagated. That's the purpose. Now, there are all other issues that came in addition to that. There was problems that they had with the Indians. There were problems dealing with survival, with food supplies and so forth. But the ultimate purpose, he prayed all the way across the ocean, and he wanted to make certain that that gospel went to a people who had never heard it before. He says, our Redeemer, Jesus Christ, said that before the end of the world, all things must come to pass that had been written by the prophets. And he goes on to explain that the gospel message is the only redeeming value and teaching that the world needs and doesn't have, and he wants to be an agent for bringing it to West Indies. Now that's colonization not ever presented by the secularists today. Comment on it. Any comments?
Well, this Mike. I'll take the devil's advocate standpoint, if I may, just to kind of keep this balanced. I know that there will be some that will say that will counter that the largest, the most number of American Indians or South American Indians that died wasn't because of the military; it was from the missionaries. So that there was they will that history, and a lot of that is revisionist history. I know Sousa in America, what would happen if she wasn't there, kind of points that out quite well. But that is an issue that has been raised, and plus with you figure measles, smallpox, those kind of things. That did there was some of that did happen.
I think first of all, I reject the idea that the missionaries had devised a method by which to annihilate the Indians. I don't agree with that at all. That is revisionist history that is presented in our secular schools. Let me read to you something else. And this, of course, with Columbus, was way before there was the Mayflower and Jamestown and so forth. Therefore, now he's summing up the work that he did in bringing the gospel to these people. Let therefore the king and queen, our sovereigns, and their most happy realms, together with all Christian regions, let us all give thanks to our Lord Jesus Christ and Savior, who hath bestowed on us so great a triumph. Let Christ exalt on earth as he exalts in heaven, foreseeing as he does that so many souls of people therefore lost are now about to be saved. Let us also rejoice, both by reason of the exaltation of our faith and by reason of the increase of our temporal things, of which things not only Spain, but all Christendom will be partakers. These things, as they have been promptly achieved, so are they briefly related. Now, I'm not going to go any further with that, but I want you to understand that there is a side to colonization that is never talked about. It's never talked about because people generally do not understand what the Christians did in bringing the gospel to the world. You see, when England colonized the nations, God had a purpose in allowing it. It's not like they did everything right. It's that God had a purpose in allowing it. Every nation is established by God's permission, and the kings are established by God's permission. But when they went to these colonies, guess what they also did? They brought the word of God. So the whole world was, what is the word? The word of God was propagated to the whole world because of England. That was the side of God's purposes in allowing colonizations, even though it is generally regarded today as an evil thing. And I wanted the audience to hear that. That's a part of our history that we don't understand and we don't talk about. And Mr. Obama thinks that colonization is equivalent to communism. I think he's screwy. He has no understanding of what it is that has happened with colonization around the world. Let me go on to something else. Fox recently reported that with his recent executive order that legalized, so-called legalized, 5 million illegal immigrants, that in fact the impact of that wasn't 5 million. The report on Fox was that by Cavuto was in fact that it could be as much as 20 million. Any comment? Well, we can't have dead air, so I'm gonna add. The point is that the way the executive order or the allowance for this, maybe it was a memorandum for all I know, who knows how he did it. But the fact is the way it was done actually allowed the edict that he pronounced to be beneficial to others who have already been in this country up to a certain point, even though they were illegal. And as a result, you have a greater number than 5 million, not that that's an acceptable number, that is not, but a greater number as a result that has been impacted by his edict to legalize these illegal immigrants. Any comment?
Yeah, there's one thing that, and I think it's probably going to be on some people's minds. This Countermand Amendment, this whole process, the process of the application all the way through the 38 states to ratify, is going to take probably 1 to 2 years. And during that time, there's a lot more damage that's being done, immigration-wise, everything else-wise. Once those states get together and countermand immigration, the executive orders, the memorandums, the DACA, all these things. What then? How are we going to put Humpty Dumpty back together again? I think it's a kind of a question that's been nagging in the back of my mind on this.
Well, you're asking the question for us to respond to, correct?
Yeah, I'm interested in what your take is on that.
Right. The fact is that everyone who has come here illegally is illegal. That's the first thing. The second thought I have is that even if the states were to countermand his executive order that legalized these illegals, the worst probably that would happen is that Congress would then come in and make an order that will allow them to stay with some kind of a visa or work permit rather than with some legal standing that is based on an executive order. That's another possibility. On the other hand, the states can countermand that as well. And so I think there will wind up being a confrontation on this issue by the states, especially the states that are being hurt so badly by illegal immigrants from the border. And I think that the 30 states that are needed for a countermand will be forthcoming. Congress won't do anything with it, but I do think the states could very well do something with it and put Congress on edge, realizing that they are now subject to a mandate by the states that literally does not allow the executive order to stand. If that be the case, then many of them could be returned to their countries. But the fact remains that the states would be in control. Does that answer your question or respond in any way that makes sense?
Yeah, it does, and I think one of the things that I know we hear a lot about, we can't deport 20 million people. I think and it's been talked about very little, but when I have heard people talk about it, it makes total sense. It's called self-deportation. I believe it was this last year or just before we had the onslaught of the children coming across. A lot of these states that had really put the hammer down on this and were saying not no, but heck no, those illegal aliens that were there were leaving and self-deporting themselves. So I think, once the states do countermand these unlawful executive orders, really, because they are unconstitutional, and we get rid of them, I think a lot of the problem that with the illegals that we have right now are going to self-correct themselves because they're not going to be able to get jobs because E-Verify is going to be really hit hard. They're not going to be able to get a lot of things. They're not going to be able to get Medicare and Medicaid and all this bunch of good stuff. So they're going to say, there's no money drawing. They're going to go back to where they know they get some money. So I think that's an issue that is going to happen.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Happened.
And I think you're right. And I think the states will have the guts to do it, even though the federal government won't. I think the states, you can look at Texas, you can look at Arizona, New Mexico. I don't know about California. They're trying to become a Hispanic community and state over there now anyway. But the fact is, you've got many, many states that are sitting here and really been hurt by illegal immigration. And it wouldn't take very much for their state legislatures to say, hey, that edict we want to counter, knowing full well that it means that they won't be able to give these illegal immigrants visas. You know, I think that, or not visas, but work permits. You know, there was a report about a month or two ago that that the government, Obama, is printing up 34 million green cards, if I'm not mistaken. And that means that they will have legal opportunity to get jobs and to take the benefits that you were alluding to. But if the states say, wait a minute, this is not, our local people are not getting those jobs, you're giving them away to other illegals. And if they take that particular position, what's going to happen, if you, by countermanding the executive order, there won't be any choice for these illegals but to do exactly as you said, and that is to self-deport, because there won't be anything for them to hold on to here.
And I think the other thing that will end up happening, and I'm curious on your take on that too, is you have all these sanctuary cities and sanctuary states like California, which is probably one of the biggest sanctuary states out there. I think what happens when those federal dollars dry up, the self-deportation is going to happen, and those cities and those states that are doing what they're doing, they're not going to be able to do it any longer. They're going to have to turn around and say, "Sayonara, folks, we can't handle you."
Yes, I agree. When I was talking to the legislature, that is to the Louisiana Balance of Budget Commission, just yesterday, as a matter of fact, I noticed something that was very, very telling as to what might happen with this countermand once they have it ratified. And that is, there was a boldness in their face. They were listening to what I had to say. They were asking me, how would this apply here? How would this apply there? And they had different specific issues that they wanted to see if this countermand amendment would in fact take hold, and how it would be used and how it would impact the federal government. One even asked, well, what about Obamacare? Do you mean to tell me that Obamacare could be rescinded with this? And of course the answer is yes. So there was a boldness in their thoughts, in their eyes, and in their comments, which gave me the impression that they're so hungry for some authority that they can actually push back on federal encroachment, that they won't be afraid to use it properly. I was impressed with that visual impact that I received as a result of sitting there in that chair talking with these legislators.
Yeah, and the other thing too, Charles, and I was able to watch the hearing. The other thing that was very self-evident, and there was a couple comments made, was that they had fully understood that once we start doing this, we are now going to be partners. The states will now be truly partners, and with the federal government, and they got that on a very basic gut level, and it was very self-evident.
You're right, and I picked that up too, and I'm glad you brought it to our attention. They were receptive. It was like they were hungering for some way in which to address federal encroachment, and up till now they had no answers. And when they heard this, they responded with, you mean to tell me we can do that, and we can do this, and so forth? So you listened well and you heard well, and they did give us that very positive response. That's why I think we're going to win with this. The fact remains that other states are also just as hungry. Remember Ori up in New Hampshire? That little state up there, that 20% of its land is controlled by the federal government. That was a revelation to me. And that's a key issue for him. See, so the point that I'm making, every state has its uniqueness and its special problems with the federal government, but every one of them, most of them, let me rephrase that, seem to be thinking, or may very well wind up thinking, that this is a tool we can't afford not to have. And this is going to open up a whole new relationship with the federal government. Okay, let me go and talk about one more thing, because before we close out our show today. Thinking about illegal immigrants and the impact that it has on our workforce, assuming that the Countermand Amendment did not succeed, and assuming for the moment that the executive order that the president has done to bring a legal status to these people. Do you realize that there could be 5 million or more jobs that they would take? And who do you think would be the groups that would lose those jobs?
African Americans. They're already at what? Well, their kids are at what, 50% unemployment rate. The adults are, I think, are something approaching 20%.
Yes, very, very, very high, extremely high. That's one of the reasons why their crime rate is so high. But the fact is, they're the ones who are going to be hurt the most. And that's why it is a kind of insanity to hear that they voted this guy in twice.
Well, and then you got to throw in the Hispanics. Hispanics have got a high unemployment rate as well. And real quick, Sean Hannity, I think the other day, brought up a really interesting point. When the Republicans are all worried about getting the Hispanic vote, it doesn't happen. Even after Ronald Reagan, historically, after Ronald Reagan agreed to the amnesty with Speaker Tip O'Neill, he only got 14% of the Hispanic vote that next election. I don't think any Republican presidential candidate has ever gotten anything above 16%. Most of the times they're down in single digits. So it's a non-starter to begin with.
Part of the problem that I see in the air, and we won't have time to develop this too much further, but the fact is, part of the problem that I see in this area of the Republicans not receiving a substantial percentage of the minority groups is because the Republicans simply haven't figured out how to sell their message. When I met with Elbert Guillory, Senator Guillory, down in Louisiana, he was on that committee, as I alluded to earlier. This man is really a fine gentleman, and I've really come to love the man. But what his concern was is that in the Democratic Party, they have actually created a plantation mentality in the African American community, and he doesn't want to live with their lies and deceptions anymore, and he switched parties. And what I am telling you is that the message can be heard properly by many in the African community if the conservatives and the Republicans would market it and proclaim it properly. There are wonderful things that can be said about free markets. There are wonderful things that can be said about healthy families. Wonderful things that can be said about even abortion. Think about the fact that in the black community, 50% of all of the unborn babies are aborted. Well, they've been doing that for 42 years. Well, I don't know exactly 42, but many decades. What does that do to the population of the black community? What does it do to the economic base of the black community?
Yeah, time for prayer, Charles. I think we just lost Charles. And we're down to, what, 2 minutes, Kelly?
Yes, we still have 2 minutes.
Do you want to send us out on prayer? Or do you want Sandy to?
Yeah, go ahead and have Sandy.
Sandy, can you end this out on prayer?
Okay. I will take Charles' place. As is our custom, we end our show with a prayer. And I wanted to say, dear Lord, we hope you have looked kindly on what we are doing and that you give us the wisdom and the strength to carry out our plan to get the Countermand Amendment and reclaim our country. And also in the process, recognizing that we have had moral decay and that hopefully with the Countermand, we can use it to bring back prayer, to stop all the abortions, and bring some purpose to our children that will work to your glory.